Man, I hate my life. What do you want, Summy?
Nerd! I'm here because we must go to the tower.
What?
To the tower, nerd. If we get to the top, we get one free wish.
You know what? Actually, what I'll do is I'll wish that all the pedophiles in government simultaneously have a heart attack.
But, nerd, wouldn't that be every single one of them?
Yes.
I don't think that's a very good idea.
Well, you know what? I'm gonna wish that you die.
Oh, man.
The epic quest commences.
You think that's the tower?
I hope there's an elevator to the top.
That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
I told you so.
Shut up.
While everyone else was playing Tears of the Kingdom, I was playing Tears of the Earth. Astalon Tears of the Earth, that is. Astalon launched June 3rd, 2021, and was developed by Labsworks, who also developed nothing else, I guess. This was their first game. Usually I like to discuss previous works, but today I cannot, so let's move right along to the story. Astalon has a simple story. The player takes the role of three adventurers: Algus the Geriatric, Arias the Idiot, and Kiuli the Boobs. The three are tasked with saving the village, which is currently being poisoned by some ominous tower. After an arduous trip through the post-apocalyptic desert, the three finally enter the tower. But before the others enter, Algus starts muttering about some pact he has with someone called Epimetheus. This will be important in about 5 minutes. Once the player finally gets control, they will enter a sort of tutorial area. Here, the player sees how each character functions. For instance, Arias is basically useless the first quarter of the game. Kiuli will be doing all of the heavy lifting when it comes to platforming for the rest of the game, and Algus ponders orbs. After this short sequence, the three adventurers meet the Black Knight, and then promptly die. I'm not kidding, the Black Knight wipes the floor with the party, but this is exactly where the pact the Geriatric had been muttering about earlier comes into fruition. You see, Epimetheus is the god of death, at least in Astalon lore. He essentially allows Algus and crew to go back in time. This serves as both a narrative and gameplay element. For a good portion of the game, players will only be able to boost their stats through death. Of course, such a gift is not free. The price is Algus's soul. So, with this knowledge, Algus continues to lie to his younger comrades and climb the tower. As you can see, the graphics for Astalon emulate those of the Nintendo Entertainment System, and it pulls it off quite well. Pixel sprites, limited color palettes, emphasis on black space, all of this hits the aesthetic perfectly. The music also clicks right into that nostalgic retro feel, with 8-bit chiptunes that sound almost identical to the classics. Sound design is one of those things that I'm not particularly good at critiquing, but what I can say is people generally don't notice good sound design, but they sure as hell notice bad sound design. And I noticed nothing wrong here. When I see the graphics and I hear the sounds of Astalon, I feel like this is a game I could have been playing back in the 90s before everything became awful. And I really do appreciate that kind of nostalgia, especially now since everything is awful.
So that's how much I've been working on my non-lethal takedowns. Now, as far as magic, I have a sleep paralysis spell, confusion spell, gravity spells. So what are you bringing to help us get to the top of the tower?
I brought a gun.
Well, what would you ever do with a gun? What would you want that for?
I shoot people with it.
Welcome to your first trial. Unfortunately, you've already fallen into my trap. Shit, he's got a gun!
I already went over some of the gameplay when I mentioned the plot earlier, but let's get a little bit deeper. As mentioned before, the three characters are unique in how they function. Each will be suitable for different fights, traversal, and puzzles. As players explore the tower, they will find items that give the characters new abilities. For example, Kiyuli's Griffin Claws, which allow for multiple wall jumps, and Arias' Sword of Mirrors, which deflect attacks, as well as several other items I don't feel like talking about. Upon death, players are able to individually upgrade each character's stats and abilities. The main thing I suggest upgrading is health, since it's shared across the board on each character, and once a character dies, you're back to this screen. I originally thought having to die to upgrade was annoying, but seeing as how there's very limited healing options, I just accepted the fact. Hell, I never even used the upgrade statues even after I unlocked the ability for Algus to communicate with them. Not only does the death screen allow players to upgrade the character's stats, it also can unlock some new functions for said characters. And finally, there are also effects the players can grab, such as weakening bosses, extra damage, and more. I didn't use these too much. At the beginning of the game, the only way to switch between characters is a bonfire. This comes off as somewhat tedious, but eventually players will find a bell that alternates characters on demand. This is probably the most important item in the game. Honestly, it's a godsend since the tower is massive. Nearly every single room within this tower has some sort of puzzle or obstacle the player has to overcome with a specific character. This is only amplified in mid to late game where the players are having to utilize multiple characters to clear one room. I'm convinced players can miss whole ass areas in this place because of how big it is. Oh, but before I continue, I should mention there are two other playable characters in the game. Bram, who is just a Castlevania reference, and this thing, which is the worst character in the game. Seriously, I fucking hate Zeke. Both of these characters bring their own stuff to the table, except Zeke. I feel like these characters should have had a little bit more fleshing out in the story to be justified, because right now they basically function as additional gameplay mechanics. Players will have to use all of these characters and items if they plan on mapping out the entirety of the tower. Now, why would they do that? To get the best ending, of course. There's 5 of them. The first one's a hilariously bad ending, and the others I really don't want to spoil. If you're going to ask me if I got the true ending, the answer is no. As much as I enjoy Astalon Tears of the Earth, I'm not really motivated to complete it 100% at this time. Don't get me wrong, 100%ing the game apparently allows you to unlock something called Black Knight mode, which sounds metal as fuck. But I'm gonna have to be honest with you. During my playthrough, the game crashed several times and it set me back hours. I don't think this is a problem with the game itself. I think my laptop is just slowly shitting itself. All that being said, the game costs around 20 USD, which I think is a fair price for what you get out of it. The main game took about 8 hours, not to mention there are 2 other story modes, multiple endings, and a boss rush mode. Decent game, I'd check it out if you enjoy Metroidvanias from yesteryear.
You may have bested my 3 demon brothers, but I won't go down that easily. Oh God! Please stop! Please! I don't want to die!
See, it was that easy.
But nerd, they had children.
Yeah, and they signed up for the job.
Good evening, boys. What could I do for you?
I came to make a wish.
You did yous? That's what they all want. Let me get you a list of the rules.
No wishing for death? That's the most stupid thing I've ever heard.
Hold your horses there, kiddo. It says no wishing for death. You just got to be creative about it. For instance, about 4 years ago, I had a guy named Tony show up here wishing for a pandemic. So I gives him a lab over in Wulong, China. You could wish for a natural disaster, a vehicle malfunction, the world's your oyster.
That is cringe. No, I'm out.
Okay, well now that little psycho friend of yours is gone, what do you want?
How about a Crunchwrap Supreme?
Now that I could do.